Hey, everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of Future Stars of Wrestling, FSW, here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how you doing today?
It's always something. So,
What does it look like right now in terms of the reopenings? I think the casinos went to 50%, I believe, on Monday. Have you received any word on how they're phasing um smaller venues like yours into opening? I know you had to do a little reconfiguration as of now. um is it still a fluid, like, at any point it can go higher capacity or lower capacity?
well, yeah, it always can. It was like, 2 weeks ago, despite what was going to happen on the 15th, we still wouldn't be able to do anything because there was 25-foot distance between performers without masks with the fans. So now that they made it 12 feet, we're still nowhere near 50%. We're actually still going to be at about 35% because once we set everything up with the 12-foot distance, we eliminate one whole side of front row seats, which is usually, you know, 22,
Yeah.
without the distancing, we were used to do about 65 front rows because we would also use a few in the front for sponsors or whatever. And,
Right.
so we were comfortable with 22 on the sides and probably 15 or 16. So we were, mid 60s, high 60s. So now by having to distance the chairs there, we're lucky to get 14 or 15 on the side now because the ring is being moved over. And then in front of the bleachers, there's probably another good 14 or 15. And because we moved all the tables from the merch area, that's no longer the merch area, we're able to put about 6 seats there. So we're probably right in the range of 70. So front row's already gone. There's nothing left. And now it's just trying to, you know, fill the seats. Wrestlers can't just have, a family member come in for free because, the show's loaded, and every dollar counts and it's 70 people, maybe 68 people. That's all we can do. It's not a profit running show. It's a show to, hey, we're back. We can do this. Uh, let's kill it. Maybe if we're lucky, we can recoup some of that money on the pay-per-view cost because we're trying something different. We're doing it on the network.
Yeah.
So instead of the fees to everybody else, if you're already a network subscriber, then you get the pay-per-view for $7.99. And again, as loaded as the card is, if you're not, it's $15.99. Well, if you're smart, you sign up and it's $14.99. You get the pay-per-view and you get a month of the network.
Right.
So it actually behooves you to, sign up for the network for 1 month if you're not a subscriber,
Yeah.
because it saves you $1 and then it would be no different. So if we were on Fight TV, we only get a minimal percentage of the $15. So,
Right.
so now the subscribers, if they wanted to see the show, they would have to pay $15 on top of they're doing their subscription. So they're
Right.
saving some money. So hopefully people look at it that way instead of, oh, they're trying to gouge us, with a network. And it's like, well, this is not a network exclusive. You guys are getting shows that, they probably got 6 shows that have not been seen by the public yet.
Right.
There's been bits and pieces and clips, so.
And with that too, one of the things that I think is smart is right now it's 79.99 for a full year, which if you look at the breakdown of that, I mean you're saving a good chunk if you subscribe for the year. And $8 for a pay-per-view, that's great. Especially too because of the fact that if you think about what other companies offer. It's, again, you use the word gouge. One of the things that you guys do very well is to make it affordable for people. How much pressure does that put on you guys in terms of needing to get subscribers, needing to um, have fans come in to maintain uh, being able to offer really good prices, not only for the network, but also for the live events?
Well, because of everything that's gone on the last year, we are pretty much in a holding pattern of doing things. We finally turned the corner probably a year or two ago about, bringing in income to where, hey, it was profitable to be, owner of FSW. And unfortunately, we've had to take a step back. There's less students, there's less hours, there's no shows, there's no income. So the income is just, we're hoping kind of floats us by. And then once we can really do bigger things. So, we had discussions with the network stuff, and it was like, guys, we're not charging $10 a month. It's like, then you can get the network you can get the WWE network for $10 a month. We want people to want to see our stuff. $6.99 I felt was a better price point, because, whether it's people, buying the pay-per-views for GCW, or donating, or even people that are making money with their OnlyFans, you got to keep it affordable. We've learned in this day and time that a lot of the fans are willing to support and pay money, but you also want to make sure they're feeling they're getting great value for their dollar.
Right.
And by watching 4 shows for $7, if anybody feels that they're not getting a good value for the dollar, when you get to see guys like Hammerstone and Graves and Ice Williams and Chris Bay popping up here and there, and Cepha and Death Proof and Kenny King and Shogun and Remy Marcel, and up and coming guys like Class, and, watching Jay Vidal and Eli Everfly, it's like, Jesus Christ. Every time I look, it's like, what the fuck? We got some roster of talent. And the bottom line is, if SoCal's running a show, they're running it under the radar and nobody knows about it anyway. So,
Right.
we're trying to be out there as much as we can, as much as under the radar, but now we don't have to be. The guidelines state we can do this, and we can do this at a certain number. Obviously, we're looking for a bigger venue, because just like the Golden Knights, they got up to 4,000, fans that are able to come at the game. Well, if we got a venue the size at Sam's Town, we should be able to put 200, 250 people in there. And, that's the goal, to get that monster show. We're looking at it late May, early June. We thought we were going to do it when AEW was in town. They won't be here. Memorial Day weekend's not the best, because if I have to fly in people, it really adds to the cost, because of Memorial Day weekend,
Yeah.
getting hotels, for, some of our big name guys that we bring in for that event. So, we're hoping, June 11th would be that weekend for the anniversary. And if the numbers are still the same, where you can do no more than 250, similar to WrestleMania, we could do a big 2-night show, to
Right.
where, some guys will work twice, but it gets the majority of the guys in there. It's the technically 12th anniversary, even though we didn't have an 11th anniversary show. So we'll do an 11th and 12th anniversary, and that's why we'll do 2 shows. And we'll do those special $11 general admission tickets, because we were extremely successful on Noah's when we did the 10-year anniversary, and we threw the clock back and sold $10 tickets. And all of a sudden, the wrestlers were able to sell so many tickets, over 300 of them, which,
Wow.
if you had all the shows from that year and counted wrestler ticket sales, we probably didn't reach 300. But at $10, they were able to be affordable. Some people some of the guys, maybe they bought tickets for their own family at $10 a pop. They didn't care, and that's why the 10-year anniversary show, the numbers are a little blurry, gray area, but we believe that we had a bigger turnout for the 10-year than we did for the TLC match with Hardy and Cage, which was obviously the biggest crowd we ever had. There was some communication issues with Sam's Town where they ran out of tickets to sell, and it's like, that's bullshit, because the room's configured for like 9 something, and you're stopping people from coming in, and we're not at 9 something. But we played the game. We kind of weaseled back and forth. Oh yeah, they're with me, and our regulars were not going to not get in. So we brought them in, and got as many people as we can in. But we don't know how many people just went to the box office and were told, hey, can't get a ticket. The only ones I knew about were our regulars who were like, oh, can we talk to Joe, blah, blah, blah. And I'd get a message, and, we'd have to figure it out. So, 250 and 250, that'll be a good day.
Yeah. With that, let me ask you how you feel about watching casinos be able to start bringing back the live shows like MJ Live and other performance shows out here, and yet you're still trying to even get a hold of someone at a place like Sam's Town where the entertainment staff isn't necessarily back yet. How frustrating is it to kind of be alienated in a sense by the restrictions, while casinos pretty much, if it's a contracted show they have, they're allowing them to open their doors?
Well, it's extremely frustrating, but you also got to remember we fall in a different category than an MJ Live. They have a stage. They could put people 12 feet away, 25 feet away. Doesn't really matter. At 25 feet away, they can still do 50% capacity because the people only need to be 6 feet apart. Now at 12 feet, I don't know if 50% changes anything on there, in those terms. I talked to a guy at a restaurant, and I'm like, should be good. And it's like, well, we really can't add anymore because of the social distancing. It kind of puts us at the thing. And then you got the businesses that are like, fuck it. We're not going to count 35%. If there's 44%, who gives a shit? Our landlord isn't giving us a 44% discount or a 35% discount. We got 100% of the rent. Well, it's hard to pay 100% of the rent when you're bringing in 35% of the money. And a lot of these businesses are squeaking by. Newer businesses don't expect to make money, for the first few years. But now is the first 2 years, now 5 years, because you're trying to get things going. Like down by, it's funny because by my bank over on Sunset, there's used to be, I think, an old Blockbuster or whatever, but now it's a Pink Box. And the thing was, like a year ago, it was like coming soon. And it was like, I wonder if this place is open. I have no idea. Then all of a sudden, like 3 weeks ago, it's painted all pink now. So it's like, oh, okay, it wasn't open. They put the fence around it. And now it's like, okay, now they're moving forward. They put up the signs and things like that. But it was like, my question is, they signed that lease at least a year ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't say coming soon if you didn't sign a lease. So are they being forced to pay rent for the year they didn't open? And my question is, why didn't they start renovating during that year instead of right now when they're allowed to be open? You know what I mean? So it's like, getting back to the Sam's Town thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's extremely frustrating. We met a guy where we did our first beers and body slams over in the art district. I think it was on like Utah or something. It was like a video game arcade business or something like that did live streaming. And in the back, it was just this giant backyard, concreted up. pool tables, whatever. And we did the first beers and body slams there. And we drew pretty well, being an outdoor venue, it was 100 degrees, blah, blah, blah. But after that, that's when the Nerd Bar hit us up about doing it at Neonopolis. And, the issue was it wasn't a great area. There was no foot traffic. Again, it wasn't us trying to broaden our horizons in terms of like a bar wrestling show in a whole different spot. It was all our fans who knew about the show that would have to travel there. So now, met up with the dude. They have a new place over in Henderson. Well, it's past Boulder Highway, off Sunset, couple miles away, and it's a custom car place or whatever, but it would basically be outside, and which is fine, but it's in the front parking lot where they're going to bring in the lights and they're going to bring in fencing to kind of make it like a little block party type thing. And they were interested because they knew we drew well, but that becomes an option, but is that the way we really want to do it? No, it's more difficult. How's the lighting? Okay, they got lights. It's night out. Is it going to translate to good camera footage? So there's that. They're still doing possibly at Neonopolis, where now with the 12-foot rule, we can get a good amount of people there. Like I said, I know a lot of the people, didn't buy tickets. They sat behind or stood behind the guardrail, and it was like really, really irritating. But then it was like, again, that tourist from Pittsburgh who showed up and saw it, he wasn't buying a ticket anyway. And it isn't like he's going to come here and know when every show is. So it's like, you know what, you lose a little, but at this point, it might be the only option to do stuff. We talked to a couple other bigger venues, but they were in a holding pattern. Last time I talked to one of the best venues in town, but it was like, well, with the 25-foot rule, our 400 seaters down to like 70 capacity. Well, the 20-foot rule, they might be able to do 150 or 200, which again, we would definitely be interested in. But again, the pricing, they may price themselves out to begin with. So if they're not giving us a break when we can only put in 150, well, that takes us out of that game. So, reaching out to Mesquite, seeing about doing something in Casablanca. They got a, 3,000 seat place. So putting 250 in there won't be an issue. So it's just trying to get the eggs in the basket, trying to get things going, and trying to like run a business like we did, 1 year ago. It's crazy. It was 1 year ago yesterday, the 15th. Yeah. That we thought, hey, in a month or two, we're ready to go, blah, blah, blah. I was getting calls from Samstown in, May, like, hey, we're probably looking to do something in June or July. It's probably going to be 250 capacity. And that's also the issue, like that. Like, we were able to try to book something 3 months in advance. Well, why can't we book something in June like we did before, being that it's only March? That way, if the regulations show up in May, we don't have to like force everything in the next 4 weeks. We got things in place, but there's nobody there. So, like I said, when I talked with Scott Diamore from Impact, he was trying to find out, get in touch with somebody because they've made Vegas, a permanent home for some Impact tapings, they're still looking, but they were hoping to book 6 months in advance, 8 months in advance. And, there's no opportunities at this point because, like I said, nobody there.
This is a question that I just kind of thought of when you described the outdoor possibility, at a place that is not necessarily a place that has a liquor license. Does that factor in sometimes, the fact that people like to have a couple drinks when they watch a show? Would it be, a little harder for you to just go into a venue like that you wouldn't necessarily have the option to have, drinks and maybe not even an option for food?
Yeah, that is an issue. I know, talking with the guys that we did the beers and body slams with, when they did it, they had their own liquor thing going on. They had some food trucks, which they would bring again, but right now they haven't been okayed to serve liquor. Well, that's where they would be able to offset their costs because, like I talked with them, it's like, what are you looking for, to get paid? It's like, we don't know if we could draw 100 people here. And it's like, I'm not going to give somebody $1,000, and I might as well just do it at the school that we already have possession of, and losing those, because again, it ain't 100 people. It's say $20 a ticket. Well, hey, that's $2,000.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember at the 20 a ticket, it's 70. So we're only going to be able to make another 500 tops. So
Right.
the chance we won't make anything. So if we make 500 tops, and we paid this guy 1,000, we're still minus. So we have to figure out ways that we can both, and he understands. That's the good thing about it. Like, he knows that right now it's a struggle and everybody's just trying to get up and running. So he's just trying to get some activity going there. And, we're more than happy to assist, because he does know we have a pretty good following and we'd be able to get some people there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And my last question regarding uh, live shows and everything going on, how important is it as a promoter to really treat the regular fans, the fans that want to come, will pay money? How important is it for you to treat those fans with a level of hospitality to get them to continue to come back? Because I think a lot of times when I think of some of the places that I've seen over the years, um, there isn't as much of a hand extended to the regular fans. But you seem to be very, very good at making sure people who want to see the shows on a regular basis get the opportunity. Is that something from the beginning that you have always felt as as a promoter, as an owner, that was very important because you yourself obviously are a wrestling fan? Is it treat people how you would like to be treated, and therefore you will reap the benefits of them being lifelong fans?
I don't know if hey, it was a conscious thought, but my conscious, or an unconscious thought, you know, when we're putting together shows, and we first did the first one at the Rancho Swap Meet, and we have no idea if we're going to get 12 people. Nothing's been going on for 10 years, and you're hustling, you're putting up flyers, and you're putting things, a shitty flyer on a pole, hoping somebody watches, sees it, because there's no commercials that we can do. We have nothing to offer. It's the very first event, you know. Sure, if we did a first event today and said, hey, we got the Young Bucks on the show, we wouldn't have to do that much. But in 2009, who the fuck are the Young Bucks?
Right.
Eric Nykirk, that's great. He was in WWE for a short time. He was in developmental. Oh, Kenny King, yeah, I know him. He's on Ring of Honor. And it isn't a huge deal. And, the rest of the card is filled in with some local talent or whatever. And from day one, we've kind of built a very strong, loyal fan base. And by drawing that loyal fan base, I'm extremely appreciative that these people are willing, especially in Vegas when there's 10 million things to do, that they're choosing to come to our show. And they're sending me a message on Facebook. Hey, sorry, got plans that day. We're not going to be able to make your show. Who the fuck does that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm letting you know that I'm not going to come to your show that I was paying to go to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it goes both ways. It was like, we have X amount of front row seats. And that's the reason why you do not see one ad about buying tickets, because our fans who have been longtime fans, hey, we put it on our fan page where we have a few hundred fans that have bought tickets. But before I even do that, I specifically go to George and the Chief and that crew and Garth and Brandon and like, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you need tickets? And they will make sure they let me know. And it's like, hey, you know, a couple times people said they were going to need tickets and then they never showed up. And it's like, you can't have that. Like, I can't have a group of 6 say they're coming, we hold their seats, they don't show up. That's a couple $100 possibly, especially if they're front row seats. So the majority of people are good. The majority send money in advance because they know it eases the issues for me. If you paid for advance, well, at least I know, you know, unless there's a major catastrophe, something's gonna cause you not to be there. And in most cases, I'll say you can use that money for a ticket for the next show. You know, I'm not a ball buster that way. You know, go to Ticketmaster and not show up for a show. Guess what? Too fucking bad. You know, so I go out of my way to be very thankful to the fans for that. So they get first dibs on anything we're doing.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. And then there's people who kind of come once in a while. Hey, by the way, we got. Then we put it on the fan page. Now there's, you know, you're going to get a certain amount of time. I put that up on the fan page. Well, front row's already done. We're moving with the general admission tickets because we only got about 37 to 40 of those, you know, and we probably have 15 or 20 done. And it's like, well, I'm going to give it till next Saturday, which puts the show a week away. And then we say, hey, we have 15 general admission tickets left. If you want them, you need to send PayPal or Cash App, because I'm pretty sure these are going to be fans that aren't frequent visitors of FSW. They come here and there. So I can't just okay them paying at the door at that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it's extremely important to us. And especially at this time, you know, there's so many people that want to come out, but there's also so many of our regulars who have chosen to stay home. And we're not going to hold that against them. It's the same thing with some of the wrestlers. You know, there's some of the guys, and we're talking about, you know, No Limits champions who just doesn't feel comfortable getting in the ring and doing stuff. And when he does, you know, hopefully, you know, we'll be able to do stuff.
Yeah. Speaking about getting in the ring,
I'm not getting in the ring. No. only to talk on a microphone.
Well, at least you're not having a beef on Facebook like Rocky T is right now. And are we going to see Rocky Thunder wrestling with Brett?
We hope not. You know, I know Rocky presents himself as a tough guy, but, you know, Brett is a legitimate jiu-jitsu, MMA guy. And, you know, for a guy with as little experience as Brett the Threat has, he is pretty brash, and he's kind of, you know, woken some people up. So, like, who is this guy? You know, he wrestled in Salt Lake City for MK this past weekend, and actually could be a preview of who's going to be the rookie of the year. Brett the Threat wrestled Nick Xander. And, you know, I was told by MK that they were very, very happy with both of those guys, and they had a really good match. You know, unfortunately, you know, Brett continued his tirade on Rocky T and FSW management, you know, because he didn't get the first class flight to Salt Lake City. You know, I guess he didn't read the Green Boy manual that says you're going to get little to no money and you're going to drive 8 or 9 hours to places. You know, I'm not sure how, you know, he's been doing in his UFC career. Oh yeah, he's not in it. So, you know, he talks about what he needs this and he needs that. You know, the funny thing is we put Funny Bone in there since he was complaining about being in the 6-man. Funny Bone beat his ass. He did well for himself, Brett, but Funny Bone beat his ass. And the next day, he's still talking the same shit. It's like it's like 51st dates. Like he doesn't remember what happened the day before, which I guess is a great trait to have if you're a guy who doesn't win a lot.
Oh man, I think the best thing I've heard all week is the Green Boy book. I like that.
Yeah, maybe you have to write it. The Green Boy.
Yeah. The unwritten
Shit.
rule.
As my kid would say, I put it out, I manifested it out to the universe, and now somebody else is going to take it.
Yeah. Getting looking forward here to March 27th. It's a Saturday. I think bell time 7 p.m. for the Day of Reckoning. How's everything shaping up? Outside of I think it's 4 matches that have been announced so far.
Well,
what does
actually,
it
5. We have the
5?
Cash in the Case ladder match. We just haven't announced that guys like Brandon Gatson and Eli Everfly are going to be in it, and probably Wise Guy. And some people are calling for the class in the case. So, that would be a possibility. But we just signed a huge 4-way tag match that I'm extremely excited about. That's going to have former champions, the RMB. It's going to have number 1 contenders, I guess, after what happens between the Unguided and Kenny and Shogun. Death Proof will be in there. And then a team that's really making noise in the California area, Toko Uso, which has a Juicy and his partner, the Samoan Lion. And then we just got confirmation that the Bad Bitches will be there also.
Nice.
So that is a tremendous 4-way match. We're still contemplating, what's going to happen with the women's title, a women's match. It's going to be there. We just don't know at this point because we were trying to set up some stuff for contenders and things like that, but not being able to do anything for the last month. Maz is sitting without a challenger. Sandra Moon's been busy with Strella, but not busy enough to dictate, who deserves that title match. Strella's been on a roll. Sandra is Sandra. She's beaten some of the best. But, the idea was to have them wrestle to decide who was going to, wrestle on the 27th in a championship match. But we haven't gotten to that point. And I know they're frustrated about it because it was like, oh, we're not on the flyer. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. All I can give Mikey is the card. And on that card, it's 2 weeks away. We needed to get it done. And unfortunately, I don't know who's going to be on there. And there's 5 different scenarios of what we can do for that match. Because obviously we want to have the women on the show. So, we're also talking about a match. Sean Davari returns to FSW. We're looking at a big battle of the bruiserweights. Tito Escondido, Sean Davari, possibly Class, possibly Cepha, So Hero Lou's got to be in there. You know what I mean? So between those 4 matches, Cash in the Case, the women's match, what we're going to do with the bruiserweights and what we're going to do with the tag one is set. We have 6 matches set. We have the women's match, and then we have to figure out what we're going to do with, the Cephas, the Heroes, the Classes, who's going to be in the, Wise Guy's going to be there. So it is fucking loaded. You know what I mean? And it's like, who's to say we're not going to bring in somebody else? The deal Bari came about recently. I'm like, hey, bro, you interested? We're doing a big show. Love to add some more name value. There. Cepha's like, hey, you got something for the 27th? I'm like, well, I'm working on it. And he plans on being there. So, at that point, it leaves out, some of our younger tag teams like Creature Feature, Sky High, the Suavecitos. But there's always room for a pre-show match, and Chase Bell and Nick Xander are doing pretty well as a tag team.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely, going to be interesting to finalize the card that I got to look at a little bit later and say, okay, who's going to be putting the cash in the case? Because in some cases, cash in the case is just for the no limits, or sometimes it's for any title. And I prefer it to be for any title. But if you're going to have a Jay Vidal and Eli Everfly and Gatson and Wise Guy, and Mondo Rocks or Robbie Litt or Adriel, it's like, well, that probably should go toward, doing it as a no limits one. But if a guy like Class or a guy like Hero's in there, then it should be obviously for any championship. So it's just the good part is, we've sold out a front row. We've only announced the championship matches. Ice and Funny Bone will be a match that will have a stipulation. Right now, we're announcing it as a no holds barred match, which kind of opens the idea of what we're going to do, because it's also limited. We can't do falls count anywhere. The wrestlers can't go into the crowd like Funny Bone likes to do.
Right.
And, beat the shit out of somebody or have one of the fans chop a guy. You know what I mean? It's like, unfortunately, regulations, call for certain things. But, it's basically 1 year ago, and we want to come back officially with the biggest show we can do. And, I'm pretty sure we're pretty close to that. Who knows if Chris Bay is actually going to show up or not. He's got beef with Ice Williams. So it's definitely going to be interesting. The most difficult thing is putting the order of the matches on that card.
True. Very true.
Wow. And then we got the Nevada State Championship. And as you've seen the buildup over the last 3 weeks, Mikey did a tremendous job on the video. I had a vision of what I wanted, and we had Shibata, we had some guy. They did the voiceovers, but it wasn't the voice I was looking for. So I went to an old friend of mine, John Lindquist, who was at KLAV when I did the Wrestling Zone.
Yeah.
And John has that booming, theater guy voice. The road was paved with gold, and it's like I needed it to sound a certain way. And Mike put it all together. He added the cinematic music to it and did a fantastic job. And then we also had been filming for the network stuff, some random pieces with Remy and Hyperstreak that have their own little separate entity that we kind of put together into a 2 or 3 minute video package to promote the their matchup for the Nevada State Championship. Unfortunately, we only got one Mikey, and we don't have 40 like WWE does, and we'd be able to do that video package for everybody. You know. So again, there's probably gonna be people that feel slighted, like, why wasn't I in the video package? Why didn't I get this? And I understand the frustration, but you got to understand that, I remember talking with Jeff Jarrett one time. We gave him at the Nitro Grill, he got the most hated wrestler, at the time. Scott Nuts doing the guitar shots, things like that. He actually, was pretty over in WCW, and and basically it's what he said. Like, that's how he kind of grew up with the Memphis territory, and it's all started. And he's like, oh man, this is like nice, mom and pop's company, and as great as that is, it's also very difficult because of budgets. We can't afford to pay Mikey anything of what he deserves to be paid. But that goes to the same thing as Hammerstone and all the wrestlers, that people see, a great thing that we're doing and understand that I'm not lining my pockets and I'm saying, yeah, I can only afford to throw you this. And then all of a sudden Joe's driving a Mercedes. I went from a Hyundai to a Camry finally, and that was because pandemic money. You know what I mean? So It's like, you know, I'm not driving in the Rolls, you know, in the $2 million house and then saying, hey, sure, I can't throw you an extra 20. You know what I mean? So they understand that, you know, it's a lifelong dream to make this company as great as we can. And, you know, they're, you know, excited to be a part of it.
Yeah. Um, you know, speaking of Mikey, how important has he been in terms of bumping up the game where you do have someone who has a very good eye for creating the video packages? Um, you know, was it something that you guys looked for a while before he came into the picture? And is there a possibility, if you were able to find another person or two people who maybe need experience, maybe they're going into the field and, you know, need projects, is that something that you would be open to, is to bringing a couple people in almost as interns
Well, yeah,
essentially?
we actually have that on the website for interns. You know, unfortunately, a lot of these guys flake off and things. But I'll give you an interesting Mikey story. This is how I basically came across Mikey. No idea who the fuck he was. Okay, his cousin is Pete Wilbur, and
Right.
you know Pete from coming to the shows and things like that. And I'm looking down Facebook one day, and we did a show at Samstown, and all of a sudden, there's some fucking guy made this video using FSW footage from Samstown, and it was like Wilbur Club Presents. So it was like Pete Wilbur. So I hit a Pete. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And who the fuck is using FSW footage and didn't ask me about doing it? Oh, I'm sorry, bro. That's my cousin Mikey. Ba 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 ba. And I'm like, well, first off, it's shitty fucking back camera footage from row 9 that he's filming. Okay. Secondly, he didn't get any permission to do it. And most importantly is, why did he do it? Like, oh, you know, we're big wrestling fans and blah 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 blah. So we had Mikey come down to the thing. And Mikey was like, oh, you know, I didn't mean any disrespect. You know, I like doing the video stuff and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. But how about you do it for us? How about you utilize the good camera footage and you don't do it from row 9 and cut it down? It was 15 fucking minutes long. Like, dude, you don't have to put 70% of all the matches on. So, as good as Mikey is, he better give me credit for kind of
Producing them.
you know, and making him understand the value of certain things. It's like, don't put finishes on there. If you put the finish, why do I want to see the end of the match? I don't want to know. I want to see some cool stuff. Cut it down. And that's what he's done. And, you know, just like a wrestler, you know, Mikey got in with us, and I have a good eye for certain things, and I'm, you know, obviously I'm going to give, I don't even call it advice, ideas, thoughts of what I'm looking for into doing stuff. You know, sometimes the problem with the production is all of a sudden shit gets done and I knew nothing about it. And I get it. My kid, you know, hey, he runs the production and we're going to do this. And it's like, okay, well, that's great that you're going to do a bunch of sit down interviews, but I don't need 14 sit down interviews with guys that are 2 months in. Let's utilize the time. Like they did some good stuff. They did one with Sin Bodie. And while I was there, I asked the questions that I want as a wrestling fan to know, instead of, you know, a wrestler's a wrestler. He's not going to think of everything he needs to think of if nobody gives him a guideline, bullet points, whatever. You know, they're just going to bullshit and talk about whatever. But we're trying to have a little bit of a structure. And because there's so few guys doing it, like all of a sudden, you know, I walk in one day, or all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I see Lawson and Sally posting the thing. I'm like, when did these motherfuckers do this? And they're doing like the hosting segment for the TV. And it's like, well, I kind of need to know. I kind of need to explain, you know, just handing a sheet of what the matches are doesn't help them because they don't remember everything. I remember everything. I know exactly what happened and why it happened because I'm the one who is behind it all. So
Right.
it gives me insight to make the hosting guys better because they can lead in this direction and they can lead in that direction. And it's like, hey, I know you're doing the hosting, but you don't got to talk about every match. We already just saw Hero Lou beat that guy. You know what I mean? It's like add new and inventive ways of letting people know more about Hero Lou, letting people know more about what we got going on. Hey, we got to show this date. Hey, we're going to do this. Hey, check out the network. Hey, check out the website, because that's what I learned, that the TV product is basically a promotional tool to get people aware of things.
Right.
I've gone back and forth with my kid about certain stuff. Well, we got to make that an FSW network exclusive. It's like, okay, Joey, I get you want to build the network, but you're not building the network by threatening people. Okay, I won't use the word threatening people. Well, you're going to see this is if you go through the network. If we offer everything through the network, then nobody's going to realize what a great product we have.
Right.
So there's certain stuff that has to go, like, Future Shock that we're going to do. Well, we're not going to air it live. We're going to put it on the weekend of March 27th. So, as I said, this is how we push it. What we do is it's $15 for the pay-per-view. Well, it's $6.99 for the $7 for the network, and it's $8 to buy the pay-per-view as a subscriber. Well, that's $15. Well, now you'll get to see the exclusive Future Shock event, and you'll get to see other stuff. If you offer nothing but like some random old footage and you want to see Karrion Kross or LA Knight or, Lacey Ryan or whatever it is, that's great. But I had one thought of, hey, buy the pay-per-view for $15 and get the network free for the weekend. And by
Sure.
getting it for the weekend on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, you get to see Future Shock. Saturday, you get to see a live event. And then you say, hey, wow, this is pretty cool, because they paid $15. Why can't we do it? But again, it's through another company. It's the structure, that's my idea. Now, whether we can make that happen, I'm going to have to find out in the next few days. But I really like that idea of giving the weekend free if you buy the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not hurting in any way.
Yeah. And when you wet your, beak and get a chance to see other things that's on it, I love the fact that you're given the opportunity to see the current product, and then you get a chance to see some of those people. Maybe you're a fan of, Kevin Kross. You can see some of Kevin's earlier work. I think that's a great way to get people aware of what the network is doing. I know you just spoke about a women's match for the 27th, but you also made a very exciting announcement for early April. I believe we're going to see the future stars of women's wrestling coming back.
Yeah, that's 1 week later. We're going to figure out the platform for that. That's probably going to be on Fight TV because they have more exposure in that situation. The idea initially was we were going to do Fight TV for this, but we want to see how we can possibly monetize our stuff and be able to make it less money, but we still don't lose money compared to just doing it on Fight TV. So, former TNA, WWE, Katarina, she'll be back. From CML, Estrelita is going to be back. Plus, we got the FSW crew, which is, Estrella, Sandra Moon, Maserati, Jocelyn Navarro from OVW is going to be there. Victoria
Nice.
from SoCal, Bryn Thorne from Arizona, mixed in with a couple of our younger talent. And we're still in talks with a couple other names that, might be available to, make it a little different product than just FSW, and we have a couple of women's matches and we bring in a girl here and there. We're trying to build that roster. And with that roster, we've done, a few shows, and Katarina's worked all of them. So,
Right.
even though we don't really utilize her on the FSW shows, well, she could be a mainstay on the women's show. MK with his connections with Adonis and in Mexico, he brings in Estrelita, so it's a little bit of lucha stuff, still looking for the Miranda Alizés and some of those up and coming female talent that, we're trying to pick out of from California, Arizona. Unfortunately, they're a little light when it comes to women's wrestling, but and again, it's difficult because pricing wise and flying in, it's a relatively small budget show where,
Right.
bringing in a couple of names like Estrelita and Sandra Moon, and Katarina. Sandra Moon will be getting me soon for that, with the pricing. Hey, I can't do that anymore. I need big dollars. You know. So, and again, we're going to be limited to 70 people. So,
Yeah.
Katarina costs more than, any guy that we're going to be using on the show on the 27th. But the difference is we're going to be using 18 guys who cost a pretty, a decent amount of money.
Right.
And even a guy like Davari, yeah, he gives us a discount rate because he's our boy and stuff like that. But it ain't like he's going to work for $50 for us. You know what I mean? So it's like, that'd be really one of my boys, So, so it's kind of adjusting the budget. With the women's show, we're also looking at doing a mixed tag this time. We were on the fence. I was more for it than MK last time, but as he saw the structure, I was right. Because it was, women's match, women's match, women's match, women's match, women's three-way, women's match, women's match, women's match. So it was 6 singles matches and a three-way. So I was actually looking at doing like Sandra Moon and Jay Vidal against Doomfly, but unfortunately Eli and Delilah were both unavailable that day. So now we got to go to the drawing board and, see if we could put a nice mixed tag together.
Yeah, that sounds very, very promising. Um, when you're looking at that type of show, how much influence do you have, and how much influence does MK have? Because obviously, with just an FSW show, you're in charge of the show. But with a cross, co-promotion, you have to work with each other. Does MK listen to you? Do you listen to MK?
We listen to each other, but MK seen what I've done with FSW. So MK doesn't step on any toes. Like, he's like the nicest guy who's ever put money into a promotion when it comes to saying things. You know what I mean? Like, I have to go out of my way, like, hey, what do you think? Who do you like? You know what I mean? And he allows me to have the freedom to do stuff. He'll make a suggestion. And again, in most cases, like we switched it around last time with Estrelita. We were going to have it work Miranda Alizé, and it was going to be the lucha type thing. But then we decided we were going to do Katarina and Estrelita instead, having a couple, a marquee matchup between the two. So, when it came to, unfortunately, like recently, I'm like, hey, we're a little light. Doomfly can't make it. This person can't make it. If you think of some women wrestlers we can bring in, who do you think? Well, then he says the same names that we've actually brought in already, that like he liked Jocelyn Navarro from OVW. Turns out she's going to be here. And he liked Viva Van, and she was going to be here anyway, so, and our crew. So unfortunately, we're still, in the search mode, not that there isn't a ton of great women wrestlers. It's the fact that we're not flying somebody in from Florida to work on a small budget show. So,
Right. As we kind of start getting towards the wrap up here, let me ask you your thoughts this week on NXT. We got a great package of Lacey Ryan, Zoey Stark, and on top of that, Zoey Stark front left-hand side while they were presenting the titles. Boy, they really, really, really have gravitated to her, man. This is exciting as hell.
yeah, actually, I was irritated for a quick second. I'm like, I saw somebody made a post about how Bodhi got on NXT. And I'm like, if you look at the video package,
Yep.
and they're showing the stuff. So I go to look at it. I'm like, how the fuck did they get our video coverage, without asking us? And then it turned out it was just a picture. And I was like, man, I want to sell him the Lacey Ryan, library. Like I thought, I heard they paid really well. And I'm like, what do you mean they're using our stuff? That sin backdoor us and take our footage? Can't put it past a carny like that.
Now you got the image of him in his makeup doing business deals with them.
So yeah, 13-year-old Bodhi got to be featured in a picture on NXT.
Yeah.
Now he's going to want to get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Now on flyers it's going to say NXT superstar Bodhi Morgan. Because I've seen that with guys that they got to appear on like a dark match at Ring of Honor, and all it says, Ring of Honor, like Ring of Honor, what? Ring crew?
Yes. That's a little known secret in the acting business too. People pad their resume by putting extra roles to make it look like big films. They're setting up looks like a little Kevin Cross action with Mr. Finn Balor. Do you think we see the Demon versus Cross?
Well, we saw the original Demon King, Funny Bone and Cross. So now we're going to see the facsimile against Cross. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that match. I'm assuming it's going to be WrestleMania weekend, and if Kevin's lucky, boy, maybe they add it to the main show. You never know. I know they're doing the 2-night show, so odds are that they're going to put him on that. But it would be nice to see them showcase, the NXT top guys on big show. We got Keith Lee over when they put him in the Rumble, and he kind of let him run wild a little bit.
And LA Knight, Sean has just been like on fire with his promos, and it looks like they're getting to Bronson and him. Bronson Reed, he's a monster, but it seems to me like that actually could be one of the better matches if that's on the 2 nights.
Well, it'll be good to see. I've always been a huge fan of Ricker, but the one thing is his wrestling skills have always taken second fiddle to such a great promo and his character and his catchphrases and stuff. Like I said, I saw him have a great match with Roderick Strong at Sam's Town, and he went with Brian Kendrick, and he can go, and he pulls out some of his super cool stuff, saves it for special moments, but he is an outstanding professional wrestler whose character and promo could jump him to the main roster at any time because he can talk pretty much everybody on there. Unfortunately, they're going to, it's funny. It's like, so did the WWE NXT writer finish off here's your promo, and it's not an insult. It's a fact of life. Did he write that for Sean, or did Sean able to say it on his own?
Right.
The one funny, there was another catchphrase that never caught on, that Brian Cage had. And it was a bit similar to Ricker's. It's not a fact of life, it's an insult. So,
Okay.
he just reversed it. And I think it's hilarious, but it never really caught on.
And just out of curiosity, the big reveal for AEW is that Christian Cage signed with the company. Is that a big enough name for the hype they gave it?
Well, again, in wrestling, everything is hype based. The statement was Hall of Fame worthy. Well, in reality, he is a Hall of Famer. And I love Christian. Christian was one of my favorites of all time. But, he is probably like 48 years old. It's like, you just brought in another ex WWE guy in the Big Show who hadn't been seen on TV for a very long time. What they did in the past is great, but, you just did that with Sting.
Right.
AEW is supposed to be that fresh upstart company looking to take out the Fed, and bringing in Christian, I know to the hardcore fans, it probably wasn't what they were looking for. Now, the problem becomes, well, what a wrestling fan is looking for and what an AEW fan is looking for are two different things.
Right.
And an AEW fan would pop huge if it was Nick Gage, for example. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden he aligned with Eddie Kingston, and they were like the savagery. You know what I mean? There's a name for a group, the savagery, right there.
The savagery.
But WWE fans, if they brought in, for example, like they did for a brief instant, Jeff Cobb or even Okada,
right?
The WWE fans were like, "Oh, who cares about this guy? What did he do? What's he done outside of Japan? You know what I mean?" Or,
right.
"Oh, Jeff Cobb. Oh yeah, I saw him on Ring of Honor." But at this point, I would much rather have a Jeff Cobb or Okada on my roster than Christian, just because of the age and how much does he have left in the tank. He had to retire because he was fucked up. You know what I mean? He didn't retire because, hey, he hit the lottery for $500 million and decided not to wrestle anymore. He, like Edge, they love wrestling, but they weren't able to do it. So, I get it. I'm pretty sure he was cleared by everybody, that needs to be. But he lost 5 major years. If you leave at 30 and you come back at 35, not that big a deal. When you at 43 and you come back at 48 years old, I'm sorry, but I think it's a difficult thing. I know 50-year-olds, they're extremely active, and the average age, like when I saw Ricker was like 38, I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize he was that old. He was in his 30s, but I'm thinking 34, 35 because he's been around a while. But, guys like AJ, like, oh shit, where'd the time go? The guy's 40 years old, So I wouldn't count Christian out, but I just know it wasn't, what's funny is, like, it would have been huge if it was Brock Lesnar, but then they would have been pissed because it was Brock Lesnar.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it was somebody else. Oh, Batista. Like, wasn't coming back at 50 something years old. That guy's an A-list movie star. He might come in once because Tony Khan wants to throw him $1 million. He may show up or something. But I really thought when he said we signed a Hall of Fame worthy wrestler, I was hoping it was going to piss everybody off and be Shaquille O'Neal that signed a contract, and he's a Hall of Famer. You want to talk about, if they did that, that would have been some bait and switch that, despite the fact that people said he did a great job in the match, that would have been like totally unexpected of what they were looking for. When they signed Jon Moxley, holy fuck. When they signed Chris Jericho, holy fuck. Everybody knew about the Young Bucks were going there and that crew. But when they were able to get those guys, that was groundbreaking. You know, you got Jericho, who's a legend, who's getting up there in age, but then you got
Right.
Moxley, who is, you know, the hottest wrestling superstar pretty much in the world right now, turning down WWE just so he could show up at FSW. Then he had to figure out what he wanted to do next. And then it was like, oh yeah, I'll try this AEW thing, you know, but as long as I get to make my FSW debut, you know, I'm good to go.
Well, I'm sure the contract stipulation of that was well discussed and thought out before before he signed on the dotted line for AEW. Final question this week. When you look at just all this magnificent talent, you know, you look at the top companies and then you can look at the independents. What do you think has been the main reason that there have been so many good wrestlers during this time period? I'm daring to say that this is probably this might be the peak of talent that we've ever seen in the business across the boards throughout the country and in the world as well.
I like to believe that, but I also say, is it? Is it the fact that we didn't have access to looking at guys 10, 15 years ago that worked in small companies and they were stars in their area, but they never could really break out? You know what I mean? It's like
Sure.
Sean Ricker's been a star forever in my eyes, and we had him in 2009. And in 2006 or 7, he was making a name for himself in championship wrestling from Hollywood. But that was it. It took him, Brian Cage, he got a developmental deal, but from 2010 to 2017, you know, 16, when he finally got signed by Impact, these guys were 8, 9 years into their careers. And then you look at Kross and Chris Bay, who were only a couple of years in, because there's so much social media presence that it's easy to find out who this young superstar is. You know, it's like, hey, there's this TJ Crawford, there's this Jordan Oliver. I don't know that much about them, but I know they're hot. And I know my son talks about them. And I see on Twitter when my kid makes posts about, oh, who would you like to see wrestle Chris Bay? Oh, who would you like to see in an FSW ring? You get these guys, and it seems like a lot of people know who they are, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember Leo Rush talking at Ring of Honor, no big deal. And then 6 months later, he got signed by WWE. And now he's back. And the thing is, there's so much talent. Why? Well, there's also so much talent because guess what? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Ring of Honor had their niche of who they would sign. Okay. Impact was that smaller company that wanted to be. So when they talked about making a living in wrestling, you had one company, and that was WWE. So if you didn't make it in WWE, you didn't make it. So now Ring of Honor, because of AEW and Impact, all have great money influxes. So there's 4 companies now that are searching for talent to put on their roster.
Right.
And with AEW, they got 2 shows. Like a guy like Danny Limelight, you know, he's on the verge. He's this close. Is he going to get signed? You know, Will Hobbs, you know, Will Rude on the West Coast. Used him a few times. Good talent.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a lot of the 1%. They may have a name change, but they're always the 1% to me. They got to wrestle yesterday. They're going to wrestle on AEW Dark tomorrow. You know, I mean, today. They're wrestling Pillman and his partner in the Varsity Blondes. And the thing is, now, instead of 60 people getting jobs because of NXT, so what Ring of Honor could do, they started signing those types of wrestlers, which were the super indie wrestlers. So now you got 300 wrestlers, 400 wrestlers. WWE alone has to have 150 wrestlers between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And now we're not even going to count the 30 or 40 guys that they sign that are still in development, like Kaya signed. She hasn't gotten anywhere to go yet, but she's going to be somewhere.
Yeah.
So AEW, they may not have Danny Limelight signed yet, but he's pretty much on AEW Dark every week. So I'm pretty sure he's not going to jeopardize that by going to Impact unless Impact offers him a good money contract.
Right.
And then he'll probably go to AEW and say, hey, they're interested in me, blah, 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 any chance, and I'm not going to speak for him. I have no knowledge of it, but looking at those guys, Tyson Maddox out of Georgia, that's going to be on our show in May, he's gotten to wrestle a few times in AEW Dark. And, even Levi Shapiro from Cali, so we're hoping our guys get on there, sooner than later. But again, they had 13, 14 matches on Dark, 5 of them are tag teams, the Seidel brothers, whatever, 1%, those are 40, 50 guys. They're getting paydays, and they're not independent promotion wrestling paydays. I know what the payday is, and it's way better than it would be for, what an independent wrestler, would have to drive 8 hours for.
Yeah.
It's probably triple. You know what I mean? So, of course, everybody's going to want to work there. And then when they do work there, most of the time they're working more than one match at a time.
Right.
Like they'll work, 2-3 matches for the tapings.
Right.
So even those guys who aren't even signed talent, they're making a living by being on AEW. And then you got Impact, who's, now kind of influxing with New Japan.
Yeah.
And of course AEW, which is great buzz for them, because of their TV deal. I don't know how it translates into buys, but I'm assuming with Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann on an Impact pay-per-view, I can't believe there's not going to be a shit ton of AEW fans who have never paid any attention to Impact,
right,
going to spend money $50 on a pay-per-view, because we've seen with the AEW fans, they have no problem spending money. So, did they get an extra 1,000 pay-per-views at $50 a piece? That's $50,000. That's a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, the dynamic is so different. Like, I like to believe, like, oh my God, there's so much great talent. It's just like, wow, we just have access to so much great talent.
Right.
Sense.
I really never put it in that mind frame of the accessibility. And also what's really amazing is that there are so many different styles that are intermeshing as well, where you have, lucha style and strong style. And, I think
look at FSW, we got guys like Shogun and Hero. They're probably really not on anybody's radar yet nationally, more so locally. Okay. And then you got guys like the Unguided, who Conan's seen because Conan saw them. We did a seminar and we put them right in front of Conan, who had no idea who these two fuckers are. And they're like, wow, these guys are pretty good. And that was before they even tagged together. You know what I mean? And now they mesh together. And then you got the older guys like a Remy, who's, scratching and clawing, Cody, that I've seen tons of guys that are not better than them that are in national companies. But right place, right time, connections, who how you're going to get looked at. Like I said, where would Hammerstone be if he didn't do the Impact tryout and Conan didn't see him? I don't know. Would he have seen him before? How quickly would Kross have been signed if Disco Inferno wasn't beating the drum on Conan's podcast about how great Kevin Kross was, till he finally said, Conan, book this motherfucker. And then they made him a monster, and it was like, wow, you guys got something there. But it took a while. Chris Bay, he got on the eyes pretty quickly. Like, here's a dude. Sanjay Dutt saw him. He liked him. He was in a good position, and our talent-wise, we got younger guys just like that. But there's so many of them that a guy like Clash should get looked at. He's very young. He's got ways to go. But those are guys that are going to fly under the radar. Tito Escondido is great. and he's had regional success. But if he shows up on AEW Dark and has a match with Brian Cage, I tell you right now, it's probably going to be the best match on the show.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's hard to say whether there's a better talent base or it's just the fact that there's so much access now to every single person. And it's been like that for a few years, but it's also been like that for a few years where, oh, wow, this guy left. Oh, Shane Strickland left. Oh, here come the Rascals. Oh, the Rascals left. Oh, here's another Rascal, Trey Miguel. And Trey Miguel left. Oh, here's this Lee Moriarty kid who's really good, and it's just one after the other. And and Chris Bay. Well, is Ice Williams that next guy? We don't know. Jay Vidal, tremendous wrestler.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Ice Williams will be able to continue wrestling after he faces Funny Bone on the 27th. So
yeah, and not eat out of a blender. So
Joe, any final thoughts for listeners?
No, check out the FSW network. It's $6.99 a month. If you subscribe now, you can order the pay-per-view Day of Reckoning, 4 championship matches, a Cass in the Case match, a women's match, as well as a huge tag team match. I'll tell you what, we may have to reinforce the ring with, Juicy and the Samoan Lion, as well as the RMB and Death Proof. And then we got the Bad Bitches. So they're going to have to get a lot of speed, quickness, and high-flying moves before they get split, you know what I mean? So, you can do that. And as I said, I'm going to work on the idea if we can do this. But I like the idea of, you buy the pay-per-view and you actually get the whole weekend free. We're very, very in the beginning stages of the network. So I am, of course, very unaware of what we can do with it, but I think that would be a great selling point.
I agree. And I hope that anyone watching or listening does, get the network and hopefully, enjoys what they're seeing enough to eventually come out to Vegas and see a show if you haven't, or if you're here in Vegas and you are liking what you see, come on out. It's tell your friends, get people
tell your
talking.
Enemies. I don't care.
Get people talking. That's the big thing. And of course, the biggest bad boys of podcasting. Please support us by listening to all our podcasts that we offer. And that will be it for this week. And hopefully we can find a little guest for next week.
I was going to say, as interesting as I am, and I know I'm extremely interesting, I'll make sure we have a guest next week.
All right, there you go, everyone. We will have a mystery guest. I just wish I had
dying to be on, but I prefer probably not. I argue enough with them outside of the podcast, so I don't need to argue with them for 2 hours here. So,
yeah, it would make my job really easy. I'd just start the camera up and then just let you two go at it.
I had the argument with them yesterday. I was like, well,